Hello YouTube! Today we are going to create a multiple file upload using Formik. If you look into my screen, I will drop a few files into our drop zone and immediately they are uploaded into cloudinary. They are not going to hit our server at all. They are going directly to cloudinary. So all this JSON that you see on the screen, this is on our own browser, nothing yet hit our server. Then when you click submit, yes, we will send this JSON to our server. So our server just has to store the URLs, not the images itself. I will explain later in the video why that is important, okay? Right now, let's just see what happens when we have errors in our files because they are, let's say, too big. For example, this video over here is 65 megabytes. My limit in this form is 300 kilobytes. So at this stage, you can't click on the submit button because we have an error. If you delete that one, then once again, you can submit your form. Now, I also added in this video a background color of dark because a lot of people have been asking me for that. So you have this code in the video repository. You can go there and check. But for now, let's jump into VS Code. When you clone my repository, this is the code you are going to get. As you can see, I already have some boilerplate in order to use Formik. When we go to the browser, this is what we are going to get. Now, we need to make ourselves a question. When we want to remove that hello YouTube and put in its place a drop zone in order for us to drop our files into, do we want to do everything manually and then handle all the events by ourselves, or do we want to use a library like react-dropzone? Well, for today's video, I'm going to use react-dropzone because it's a library I really love to solve this exact problem. So if you look into this documentation, and I will zoom this for you, you can see that the way you use this library is basically just by this useDropZone hook. So this useDropZone hook will return two very important functions in my opinion. The first one is the getRootProps, and that getRootProps you will pass into your main container, in this case that div that you see over there. The next function is the getInputProps, which, as the name implies, we will pass into our input field. If you are asking yourself, what properties are we passing to the div? Those are all the properties and event handlers that we are passing into that div. Similarly to that one, what we do over here is the following list. So these are the two lists that we are sending both to our div and our input field. Now you may be asking, okay, Bruno, but what happens when I drop a file? What's going to happen? Well, then this function that we have over here will be called. And as you can see over here now, we only have the accepted files, but we can also have the rejected files that failed our validation. Let's say you want only files up to 1 megabyte and someone tries to send a file that is 2 megabytes. Even before we do the upload to the server, this library over here will send in a second parameter of this function called the rejected files. Okay? And another thing that you need to keep in mind is this function will be called only with the last files that the user dropped. So for example, you drop 5 files right now, then you go to your file system and you drop 2 more. The second time this function is called with only 2 files, not the 7 files in total. So you will have to keep in a use state in your component those other files, and every time this function onDrop is called, we will merge those into the existing files. Okay, so with all that said, let's start to copy this function over here. Even though we don't need this isDragActive, I will remove that in a little bit. Let me just go to the source and I will create a folder called upload. So you can copy this folder into your project and you will have all the files that I will create today. And the first file, I will call it a multiple file upload field.txx. Export function multiple file upload field. And then I will just paste that code. As I said, I will remove this isDragActive, I will remove this bit and this bit. Okay, now we just need to import the useDropZone and we need to import the useCallback. Let me try again. And now we imported those two. As I said, the first thing we need to do is to now create a state that I will call files, the set files, use state, which is an empty array for now. And then I will have the accepted files and the rejected files, right? Those two are arrays as well. The first one, the type of this is an array of files. The second one, we can over here and see that there is a file rejection array. So you might already be thinking that we will have to normalize one of those two, right? Because, well, they are in different types. So if you now go inside this file rejection, right? Let me just click. You can see that the file rejection is a file. So up to this moment, we are good. And then we have errors. So what we can do is pick up the accepted files and transform the accepted files that are an array of files into an array of wrapped files or file rejections if you want to. I don't like the name file rejections because it's already implied that something failed. So I will just create a new interface over here, interface, and I will call it, for example, uploadable file. It's probably a bad name still, but better than file rejections, I guess. Feel free to change that name from uploadable file to something else, okay? Now, I will just say that it will be an uploadable file array, okay? I will import this use state because it's not imported yet. And so the only thing we need to do now is to transform our normal files into an object with file and errors with an empty array. So let's just do mapped accepted equals to accepted files dot map. We will receive a file, and now we will just return an object with file and errors with an empty array. Now, what we need to do is just to go to our set files, right? Set files. We will just do the current files that are already there saved. So we will do current, we will do the mapped as ACC, which is the accepted, and then whatever name I call to these ones, rejected files, right? So basically, when we do this, and I have the wrong typing, so now it's good. I can format this code, and we are already handling the dropping, and we are already saving all the files rejected and not rejected into the same array. So then in the future, when we start to show stuff, we will show an accepted file accepted, one rejected, one accepted, one accepted, one rejected, for example. If you keep two lists, because you can do this in that way as well. Instead of having all the files into the same list, you can have a list for accepted files, a list for rejected files. But then if you save those two lists in separate, then you will have a list of all the accepted files and a list of all rejected files. In this case, I want to keep a list with the order that we submitted the files, not if they are rejected or accepted and the order depending on that, okay? But both solutions are valid. It's just two different UX perspectives. None is wrong or right, okay? So now what we need to do is just to say that we have those files. So let me just come over here and I will just do the following. JSON.stringify, just for our own debug, okay? To make sure that we are on the right page. Let me just come over here into our index.txx, replace our beautiful hello YouTube by this new component, right? And hopefully now VS Code will help us import that file. And it did. Thank you very much, VS Code. We go over here into our application, we refresh, and now you can see that we have that empty array. I can click over here, putting this bird and this cat. I will do open. I have two files. I can also put one more file over here, which is very good. And now I can even come and drag a file over here. So when I drop a file over there, it's also working. So this initial part is now kind of done. What do we need to do after this? Well, after this, we can now come over here, delete our debugging from there because we don't need the debugging anymore. We know it's now working. I will just create a React fragment. I will put this React fragment at the bottom. And over here, the only thing I will do is that I will loop through all my files, okay? And for now, I will kind of ignore that we can also have rejected files, okay? So what I'm going to do is, over here, I will loop through all the files we have. So I will do files.map, file, and in reality, this is a file wrapper because we have that wrapper in the file of the file is inside that thing. And then we also have the errors. So we will have a file wrapper. And now we need to create a new component and we can call it what? Let me think, single file upload with progress. Probably a bad name, but let's go. Single file upload with progress.tsx. Let me just copy this. Let me just do export function of this. And let me just return a div with a single file upload. Okay, so now we have this file, so we can come over here, and the only thing I'm going to do is to pass a file, and we will do file wrapper.the real file. Okay, so basically now we can import this file. So TypeScript is not complaining at us. It will complain because we don't have that file yet. So let's come over here, create an interface. Okay, export interface props, and we will do file with the real file, not our wrapper anymore. We can copy this and do file. And over here, we will have that single file upload with progress. So if we go now over here, we should have no warnings anymore. And we should be good in a bit when TypeScript stops complaining about it, because we have a file, so it should be good, right? So now, what do we want to do with this? Well, we want to do the following. Every time that this component is initialized, because we have a new file to start the upload, right? We want to have a use effect that will do the upload for us. So let's start by creating that use effect, right? And we will just say that this use effect will be only initialized once, right? And inside this use effect, now there is something that I need to tell you about. If you are deploying to, for example, Vercel or netlify, which I know many of you are, you have those two things that you should read. Probably pause the video and read. But basically what it means is the file system in both Vercel and netlify, there is a temporary file system, or as some people call it, an ephemeral file system. Okay, what it means is you can use it as a temporary file system, but nobody guarantees that in 10 minutes the files will be there. That is something that they are inheriting from AWS Lambda. That's the platform they use. Okay, so AWS Lambda has the same problem. If you tell me, but Bruno, I'm using something like Heroku, for example, so I can save into my file system. Well, you can, but Heroku as well has the same problem. It's an ephemeral file system, so nobody guarantees that in a week your file will be there. So in those scenarios, we will use any cloud provider that provides, for example, AWS S3. Basically, you have Azure Cloud Storage, which we call the blob storage. You can have Google Cloud Storage. You can have Cloudinary, the one we are going to use today. You can have ImageX, for example. And you might be asking, okay, with all those options, will the code differ? No, the code is exactly the same. You basically point to a different URL, and you may change the key where you put the key, right? Cloudinary will put the key into the form data itself. I will show you that in 2 or 3 minutes. And Azure, for example, puts in the other. But those things are basically the same, the way you use them, okay? So with that being said, now we need to talk about another problem, which is if you are using, for example, just fetch, okay, and you will do method, post, and then your URL, etc., fetch doesn't allow us to have the progress, okay? You can upload with fetch, no problem whatsoever, but you can't have the progress. If you are uploading a file with 20 megabytes, you can't understand the progress of your file yet. If you are using something like Axios already has the progress. So you can do URL, and then you put your form data, and then you can have over here, I think is a function called onProgress that will give you the progress of what's happening. And Axios only has that because behind the scenes, Axios is using XMLHttpRequest. And by the way, for me, it's very hard to say XMLHttpRequest. So if I fail during the video, I'm already saying sorry in advance, okay? Because it's really hard to say that for me. But now what we need to do is to use that XMLHttpRequest, and basically that one will have the progress. But you will see that's very tedious to use that. So let me just create a function over here that we will call upload, and I will just call upload over here, because then I will just do const URL equals to await upload file, and this is the one where we are going to use our XMLHttpRequest. So let's start by creating that function. So we will create that function. We will call it with a file. And now we will just do the following: return new promise. And inside this one, we will have the resolved and the rejected, right? And this is now where the fun starts, right? This is where the fun starts. So let me just put the URL. Depending on the service you are using, this URL will be different, right? And now inside here, we will do the following. Const xhr equals to new XML HTTP, XML, not HTML, Bruno, XML HTTP request, right? And now we need to handle the success, the error, and the progress itself, right? The first thing that we usually do is to open, okay? And open will say the method that we are going to do and the URL. The URL, we will go in a minute to the Cloudinary website to copy the URL, right? Then you also need to have the on success, which over here is called load. Okay, so we will do on load, and the on load will be just a function. Just a function, and I will show you how Cloudinary handles that, but this is where we are going to pass the URL, where Cloudinary saved the file. Okay, we will come back into this line in a minute's time, probably. Then we will handle the on error, and the on error, it will return an event, so we can just do reject with that event. All right, and now this is, this is just an equal, and now this is where we are going to do the progress. So we will do xhr.upload.onProgress, right? And this function will return an event to us, event, right? And basically, what are we going to do with this event? We are grabbing this event, and we will do the following. We have event.total, okay, which is the total size of our file, and we will have how much we already loaded. So for example, let's say we loaded 500 kilobytes, our file is 1 megabyte, which will be the total. We can just do the loaded divided by the total, multiply by 100, and we then round it, and we have the percentage. So let's start by doing that. Just keep in mind one very small detail that can be important for you. There is something here that is the length computable. If this length computable is to false, you can't trust the total value. I will leave somewhere a link to the MDN or a print screen to the MDN explaining that bit, okay? Just do that validation over there. If it is false, don't trust the total amount. So, as I said, let's say percentage equals to, we will do the loaded divided by the total, right? By the total, and we need to put event dot. Good job, Bruno. We will need to put event dot as well over here, multiplied by 100%. Now, the only thing we need to do is to call a function over here that we can say on progress. We will just create a percentage, which will be a number, and it will be returning void. So let's just do the following. On progress, math.round of percentage. So we don't send anything like 33.22222. Okay, we just send 33 or 34, not anything in the middle. All right. And then the last thing we need to do over here is just to go over here and do xhr.send. And when we do this send, we will send a form data. Okay, so how can we create the form data? We will just do the following. Form data equals to new form data, right? And form data.append, and we will do file. This is usually a common convention, okay? We will do file, and the file will be the file itself. So let me just scroll this at the top, which is easier to read. Now, the only thing we need to do is that in Cloudinary, they will, as I said before, have the key. They don't call it key, they call it something else. We will check. And they will have the key over there, okay? So that's the only bit that's missing. And when we go now to the Cloudinary website, you will see that our thing will start to upload. So let me just go to the documentation in Cloudinary, and we will use their demo account, as I said. So the URL is over here. This is the first thing I want to copy, is the URL. And the second thing will be the key itself. So let me just copy the URL. I can say const key equals to whatever key they are having, which is basically our upload preset. That's what they call it. And I forgot the D, so I just need to do docs preset. And now they have, I think, is upload preset. So let me just go at the bottom and call this upload preset. Let's just create a new upload for you to see what Cloudinary is returning to us, right? So if we do this upload, this is what cloudinary sent to us in the response. We can go to JSON lint, for example, and one of the properties that they are going to return to us is the secure URL, as you can see here. So if I just copy this secure URL, you can see this image is what we uploaded right now. Okay, this is the image we uploaded. And probably you are already aware of this image. I already showed it on the video a few minutes ago. Now, this is what we uploaded. So we can just come over to the secure URL because we will use that on the onload, right? This function over there. So let's just do response equals to xhr.response text. Okay. And basically at the time, JSON was not that known yet or not that used yet. I think XMLHttpRequest is coming from the IE 9 or 8 times, so a long time ago, right? So at the time, they don't have anything like a response JSON, so that's the reason I'm using the response text. I'm parsing the response text and then just using the secure URL, okay? So now when I start to use this, I can go over here. I will have a progress function, right? So let's just pass a function, which will be our progress. And we can even put it in a state over here. So let's say progress, set progress equals to use state. We will start that state with 0. So in reality, we can even pass this bit over there, right? And our component will just set that, no problem whatsoever, right? Now, what is it complaining about? File is not assigned. Because we have a file array and it should be a file only. Okay, basically I will just import this, and now we have most of the things that we know, that we need, sorry, in order to upload. So let me just go over here. I have this URL, so I will just do a console log for now of the URL, so we can test it ourselves, and then we can start to pass the URL up the chain, okay? And I will just do the following, progress over here, so we can see the progress. Because these images are very, very small, let me just see if we are now no errors, because now we don't have a file array. That's why we were having the errors before. So I can come over here, and as you saw, these values were increasing. And I have quite a few things over there, but let's start this from fresh. Now, if I come over here and I upload, for example, this file, okay, I will upload it over there. You will see that we now have a URL over here. This key is normal because you are not passing the key in React, right? If you want to solve that error, we just need to come over here, do this, index, and we just need to do this, key equals to edx, okay? Now React will not complain anymore, right? I can just refresh this page, pass it again, and now React will not complain, and we have our upload there. So if I open this in a new tab, you will see that I have another image that you already saw on this video, right? So that bit of the upload for us is now working, which is very good news. Let me just delete all of these things that we have open. We don't need them anymore, right? I can now go over here, and we are handling already the uploads for the ones that passed validation. This is very good. Now you probably want, and I want as well, to have some progress bar over here instead of having what we have at the moment, because it's a bit sad what we have. We don't have anything special. So before we do anything with the URL, let's take care of the progress bar. So let's go to the Material UI documentation, okay? And in the Material UI documentation for the progress bars, you have quite a few examples. You can have circular ones, you can have basically these custom ones. I honestly just like the normal ones. I don't need anything special over here, so I will just copy the super normal one, go back into our code, and I will just do the following. I will put this inside the a grid item, because we are using Material UI, and the grid item will basically put just spacing between them, because in the top level, let me show you the top level, in the index, I have this Formik with a container, right? And I'm saying spacing of 2. So each item will have a spacing of 2 between them. That's the only reason I'm wrapping everything now in a grid item, okay? And then I just need to paste what we got. So this is the linear progress we got. It will be of type determinate, so it's very good. That's exactly what we need. And now the progress actually is the same name that we are already using. So I don't even need to change anything over there. I can go back over here to our localhost 3000. And if I drop 3 or 4 files, let me just drop all these files. So it will take a bit longer to upload, especially my video. So I will not put the video. It will just take a bit too long. And you can see we already have some progress bars. So the next thing that you might want to do is to have the title over here at the top. And for that, I will create a file called file header is probably a good name, right? And so let's create a file header, because then we will use the exact same thing for the files that we reject. Okay, we are not handling the file rejections yet. So let's just do file header over here .txx, and let's do export interface file header props. For now, we are not going to do anything with that one. And then we will do file header. And what are we going to receive? One of the things that we can receive in the file header is the name of the file. So we can do file name, or in reality, we can even receive the file itself. And then in the future, if we want to also put the file type or something, we already have the real file. So let's receive the real file. So let's do file and let's receive the real file. And then what else do we need to do? We probably want to have a delete button at the right, at the right side of our progress bar, right? It makes sense to have a delete button there. So let's do that. Let's receive an onDelete. And basically, when we delete, what we are going to do is to send the file to delete, okay? So this is a void function. This looks very good for me. And we will have file header props. This is just what we need. Grid, we will have a container, okay, because now we want it to be in this direction, in the horizontal direction. We have that container, sorry. And the next thing we want to do is to have a grid item with the file.name. I guess it's file.name. And I didn't import grid yet. Let's import the grid. Thank you, VS Code. And then the other grid item will be our button. So we will do a button, which will be a material UI button. And I think we can have a size for the button. Yes, we can. And I will put the smallest size we can have, which is a small button. Let's call this button a delete. And basically on click, we will just do on delete of the file itself. This seems good to me, right? Let's give this one a try. Even before we have the on delete, let's just give it a try. Let's have a file header. We will pass a file, which the file will be the file we already have. And the on delete, we will just create a function. And actually for now, we do absolutely nothing, right? So let's just put this. We will import the file header. This seems good to me right now. Let's just go back over here, and we already have the file name and the button to delete. Now the only thing we want to do is to put them with space around. Okay, let's go over here. I don't even, it's here. I don't even remember the name for that, but I think it's space around. Okay, we need to go to the material UI documentation. I don't really remember what's the name. I think it's space around. I think it's with the display property, but I need to check. I don't remember. So let's see if they have a space around. Justify. Okay, let's do that. Justify equals to space around. And basically that's enough. We can also do an align items to just center them, because if you saw them right now, I will probably get an error when I try to do that. Let me just try to upload something. If you see, they are not vertically aligned with each other. So I will just do an align items to the center. in that case, they will be vertically aligned as well, right? Let's go over here, and they are at least aligned with each other. And let's just put space between, not space around. So this way they will go to the extremes. And this is starting to look actually quite nice, right? This is starting to look very nice. The only thing I need to change is, if you see, these are not aligned with the drag, so I need to put the drag also in a grid item from material. So let's just go into our thing over here. Let's just say that it's inside a grid item. So now it will be aligned with everything we have. Okay, we save, we go back to our file, and my computer kind of crashed. Ooh. Okay, is it alive? Okay. Okay, my computer is back to life. So basically, we already have this thing, and now they are aligned with each other, which is a very good starting point, right? Let me go over here once again. And as you can see, now the next thing you probably want to do is, when we click to delete the file, you want to delete the file, right? So let's come over here into our single file upload, and we will create an onDelete. And this will be a function exactly the same as the other one we have there. So will be a void. So we will receive that onDelete over here, and we will just pass that onDelete over there. Now we need to go into our multiple file upload, and we will do the following: onDelete, and we will just do onDelete function. So let's create that function over here into our component function. onDelete, we will receive a file. And now the only thing we need to do in this function, right, is to loop through the elements, right? Check which of those elements is basically that file, right? And basically return that one. So we can use a filter for that. Let's say set files, set files. We will get the current list of all the files, right? And let me just do this way. I have all the files right now. So the only thing I need to do is to go into those current files, okay? New files equals to current.filter, right? And now I will receive the file wrapper. So I will just call it FW, which is the file wrapper. And I will do file wrapper.file equals to the current file, right? And now I just removed, it's the opposite, is different from the file. And basically I have a list without that. I just need to return this list. And now we are good to go. If you don't want to have the return or the curly braces, we can just do the following, and now you are good to go as well. I just need to remove this semicolon, and now we are good to go. We removed all the files that are not the one we have. We can come over here. Let me just upload 2 or 3 more files for us to test them. So I can click those. They are going to upload. I want to delete these cats. I click, and that cats is gone. So the first thing, I think we are in a good stage right now to also then start to update our URL, right? Because if you saw, we know about the URL right now over here, but we are not doing anything with the URL. So let me just format this code. The next thing is on URL change, or on uploaded, I think is the better name, on uploaded, right? Or on upload. On upload is a better name. We will just do the following. We will send the file. So we can then do something very similar to the delete, but this time, instead of we just use a filter, what we are going to do is do a map and then use this URL to add an URL to the file and the errors that we already have. So let me just do that. URL string, this will be just a void, okay? So we just need to come over here and do the following. On upload, I will just do the file, and basically I will send a new URL, which is that one over there. I just need to now receive that function, and this should be good to go. Why is it complaining? Because in our promise, okay, over here, I didn't set the type of the promise, right? Yes, I didn't. So let's just set the type of the promise. And now this will be a string. And now this one should stop complaining. We are in a good place right now, right? Let's go back into our component over here, and we will pass a function on upload, and we will create a function called onUpload as well, and we will do something very similar to what we did for the onDelete. On upload, we will receive a file, we will receive a URL, which will be a string, right? And we can even copy paste this one, right? And we will do something very, very similar. The difference is that this time we will do a map. And now let me just delete all of these. All of these from here, right? Because now in our map, the only thing we need to do is to check the following. If the file wrapper .file equals to our current file, we need to return the file as is, right? The file wrapper as is, plus a URL, which will be our URL. And then in this one, we just return the file wrapper. That's pretty much what we need to do. The only thing we need now to also do is our uploadable file doesn't have any URL over there. So let's just add a URL, which is optional, because at the beginning, the URL is not set. Only when we finish the upload of the file, we will set that URL. So that bit seems good. I can format this code, come to the bottom, seems a bit unreadable, but good enough. I trust prettier on that. Let me just refresh this page. Let me just upload a few files, can be those files once again. They look good. And if I go to the bottom, I don't have any values yet because I'm not connecting with the Formik yet, but I can just come over here and we can just drop a JSON.stringify of the files, right? So we can do our own debug before we connect with Formik. Now, let's just come over here and we have all the URLs, as you can see, URL. Let's just test one of those URLs to make sure that everything is working as we expect. I need an HTTP at the beginning. And if everything is working as expected, it is. Let me just copy another one to make sure that it's working, because that's exactly the same one we saw before. And it's working, right? So basically now what we need to do is to connect this with Formik. That's the next step. So how can we do that? Well, if you look into our index.txx, over here in the initial values, we are not passing any initial value. So let's start another field over here called files. And over here we will pass name equals to files, right? So we will need to now update our multiple file to receive a name, which will be just a name string. And this is starting to look good. So let's just go into our name of the string and we will just do the following. Const, we will receive three properties over here. It's an array with three positions in a use field, okay? And we will just pass the name. And now the first position, we actually don't care that much about that first position because it's the value of the field itself. So we can just open over here and we can see what we are going to receive, right? Field helper. So the first one is the field input props. I really don't care about the meta as well, but I care about the helpers. So if you don't care about the first parameter or the second, we can pass just underscores. And now we care about the helpers because the helpers is where we have the function to do helpers.setValue, okay? And so how can we set the value? Well, actually, we are in a very good place. Every time that these files change, we just want to set the value in those helpers, and we will be doing the connection with Formik. So let's just do a use effect. And basically, this use effect will change every time our files change. Okay, and the only thing we need to do is helpers.setValue is files. That's just it. We just override whatever value is there with this new value and we are good to go. If you really need this for validations, you might want to also do helpers.setTouched to be true. For what we are going to do today, this is not important, but for some scenarios, this might be important. So let's just say that when it changed, we put it to true, and you are good to go, right? As I said, for today, I don't care. I will leave it commented if you need in your application. Okay, so we can go to our browser. We can now refresh our browser, right? Click to submit a few files, for example, the cat and that one. We do that, and you will see that now, after our file ended the upload, Formik already has the URL over there. So this is going in a good place. The next thing I want to do is to do when our files failed validations, okay? For example, if you have a validation of 300 kilobytes and our file failed that validation, well, I don't want to even submit the file. Okay, let's go. That one. And over here, if you saw, I'm just doing everything to the single file upload. But as we discussed 20 minutes ago, probably, this video is already with 45 minutes almost. So as we discussed probably like already 20 minutes ago, this bit will be for the errors and for the good files, right? So what can we do? We can change this a slight bit. So instead of being like that, let's just keep that one over there, and I will start to change this one, and then we can delete the previous one, okay? So we can just come over here and do the following. If the file wrapper dot errors dot length, length, I never know how to type length, this means that we have an error, okay? So we can just do div error, bad luck, right? We just have an error over there. Now, if for some reason we don't have the error, so else, we will have this thing as is, no changes whatsoever to that thing, right? Instead of having if-else, usually I don't like to have if-elses in my JSX in the middle of it. So let's just do a normal function over here, and let's do a ternary. So let's say if we have that, we will do this. Otherwise, so otherwise, we will have that, okay? And this way, we just need now to come over here and do agreed item. And I will just do agreed item over here at the bottom. And this seems very good to me, right? What do you think? Is it good for you? I think this is good for what we want, right? Let me just now come here, and we can just also remove this bit. We don't need that bit anymore. And I can come to the use drop zone, and let's say that from now on, we only accept, for example, videos, right? So let's say we accept video only. We don't accept images or anything else. We say we accept every single video format. Let me just format this code so it's easier to read. And now, hopefully, when we upload an image, we should see error, so we can then create our own error handler. Okay, now let me come over here. Let's refresh this page. Refresh this page. And now when I try to upload, for example, this image, we should now see error over there. So this is working as we want. If I come over here and I upload this video, which is 65 megabytes, it's starting to upload, and that bit is good. Okay, let's come over here and create another file that we can call it, for example, upload error, upload or validation error, whatever you want to call it. I will call it upload error, even though this is not an upload that failed. This is even before the upload was made. But in the middle of the video, I can think of a better name, so I will go with upload error, right? And I will just do export interface upload error props, and we will see what we are going to receive, which is probably just the file itself in order for us to pass it to our file header. Okay, so let's just do function upload error, which will receive whatever properties of type upload error props, right? And so what are we going to do over here inside. The first thing we want to have in this one will be a red line, right? So instead of having a primary progress bar, we want to have an error progress bar. That will be the first thing. Then the second thing we need to have is the header. So let's start by a React fragment, right? And now we will have a file header, okay? And the file header receives a file. So we will pass the file, and then it receives an onDelete, which we will pass an onDelete function, right? So let's type this. So we will say file onDelete will be a file of type file, and we will do just void. We will receive those. So we will have file and onDelete. This starts to seem good. Let's just import the missing import. So we need to import this one from file header, and this one is already there. Now let's go to the material UI just to see how we can customize to make some style into our progress bar. And I guess they have some examples over here of them changing the progress bar aspect. For example, this one should be good enough for what we need. And actually, yes, this is basically what we need. We can copy this bit, call it the error linear progress bar. So let's put it over here. We can delete most of it because we just care about the background color itself. I don't care about anything else, to be honest. I can just come over here. I need to import this. And VS Code is about to crash. Poor VS Code. I feel sorry for you, VS Code. Oh God, VS Code, come on. Okay, let's start by importing this one. Then we can import the create style, and I don't even need to have that theme over there because TypeScript is smart enough to know about that. So what we need to do now is to do the following: theme.palette.error.main, and that's the color I care about. I want to change this to be an error linear progress bar. So we can come over here and say that we can copy from this one actually, right? We can come over here, copy the variant and the value. So let's copy the variant and the value. We will say it's already 100%, right? This seems good. And we have usually what we need from there, which is a good starting point. Now let's go back over here to our localhost 3000. And if I refresh and pass something over here, I should see the error component because we are not even calling it anywhere yet. So let's just call it over here, right? Let's come over here and do an upload error. We will pass the file, which will be the file. The onDelete will be the same onDelete. So I think we are good to go, right? This seems very good. We can come, oops, we need to import the file. Okay. And now it should be good to go, right? So we need to do a file wrapper.file. And now when we have that, we can go back over here. We can select one file that is the expected one. I will put all files, so they will fail, and I want them to fail. So they failed, which is good. Let me just test the delete so it also works. So we already have quite a lot of things done. What is the next thing we might want to do? As I was saying at the beginning, we can now do some more validations over here if you want to, but to be fair, I think you will see most of the validations. You can say, for example, max size, right? And by this max size, you will be able to understand all the failures that you will have. Let's say we want to have 300 kilobytes times 1024, and this is around 300 kilobytes. Okay, and we can also pass the error into our component over here. So we can do error equals to file wrapper dot errors, right? And this is all the errors that our component will have. So we can come over here right now and just copy those errors, which is a file error array. Okay. So into our, where is our upload error? It's over here. And I will just do the following. Over here, I will import this file. Very nice. Oops. Very nice. And I will just do the following errors. And at the bottom of my upload itself, I can just put a list of the errors that happened. So let me do this. Let me go errors dot map. And now I have the single error that happened to me. And the only thing I need to do is, for example, to have a span where I will just put all the errors one after the other. And the error have something called a message. So error dot, I think is message, isn't it? Error dot message. That's exactly that. I will just stop for like 5 minutes because my computer is driving me crazy. I think my computer is a little bit better right now, so let's try it again. Let's go over here and let's upload, for example, this file. And as you can see, this file is bigger than the 300 kilobytes that we selected, so we are going to show the message. At the same time, if I select, for example, all the images, I know that some of my images are bigger than 300 kilobytes. So I will have multiple error messages. For example, over here, I have saying that the file is larger than 300 kilobytes and saying that the file must be of type video. So I can come over here. Instead of having a span, I will have a div. So we will have the messages one after the other. And basically, this will be what we need. If you want, you can put the messages in red using the typography in Material UI. Okay, so for example, typography, I will just put this at the end, typography, and I will say that this typography will be with the color error. Okay, color equals to error. So if I save this and we go back over here, you will see that now the messages have the same color, right? If for some reason you don't like these messages, right, I can show you something over here, message, and I can also show you error.code. So there is a code, and if you want to translate the code yourself or do something with the code because you don't like those default messages, you can see that the code for this one is file invalid type, and for this one is file too large. So you can grab those codes and create your own messages if you want to, right? Okay, let me just delete this bit over here. And now I think we have everything that we need for this video. I will just remove now the accepted, and then we will do a bit of validation for the upload button, okay? When we click to upload to submit the form. Now, I think we have everything we need over here. So we have our upload error with everything that we might need. We have our single file upload with everything that we might need. We have the upload, we have the delete, we show the progress of the files. So everything seems to be very nice over there. We have this, which is connecting ourselves with the Formik component. It's handling everything that we want to handle right now. I can say that we will accept, for example, only image, so any image, and we will accept video. Right? So this is the types that we accept. If you try to submit a PDF, for example, we don't accept. You can also put stuff over here by the file extension. You can say .pdf, for example, okay? So if I just make that way and I remove those two, then I only accept PDFs, okay? So you can even use the file extension. If you don't want to accept all the image formats, you can say, for example, I only accept JPEG images. So all my images that are of the format PNG, they will now fail, okay? I can come over here, and as you can see, I only have those two images, so I can upload those two. This one actually is bigger than 300 kilobytes. This one is not. And all my other images that are not one of these formats that are over there, I will just upload one, which is PNG, and so it will fail because it says the file type must be JPEG, video, or a .pdf, which is not our case right now. So we have that validation bit done. The last bit we want to do is actually in this initial file. Let me just close all the other files so my Visual Studio Code doesn't consume as many resources in my machine. And now we just need to put a validation schema over here. Before we do that, let me just do the typical values, console.log values. If you watch my videos with Formik, probably you know exactly this line by now. So resolved, set timeout of 2 seconds, for example, and we will do the resolve with 2 seconds. I think is, promise, Bruno. Learn how to type promise. So basically, we have now a fake loader, a fake timeout when we submit our form. And the last bit we really want to do is a grid item with our button, which will be of type submit. And we can call this button submit, for example, right? I will just import this button from there. This button is now imported. And so what we want to do, we want to not be able to submit, so that our form is invalid every time that we don't have a URL, right? Of all our uploads, if you see over here, some of them, they will not have a URL. So when we don't have a URL, it means that bad luck, we can't submit. We have or an upload still in progress, which is one option, or we have an error. Either scenario, I don't want people to submit the form, okay? So let's come over here, and the only thing we need to do right now is the following. We will do validation schema, validation schema equals to, and now let's just import Yup over here. So let's import array object from Yup. We will also need the string for the URL itself, okay? So let's just do a string. And now the only thing we need to do is the following. Object. The string that we care about, the string that we care about will be URL. And so we need to say string dot minimum value, or in this case, we just need to say required, right? And we have that string over there. Now, because this is an array, I just need to do the following, and I will have an array over here. Oops, my computer is actually very, very, very slow. I'm so sorry. And so the reason this is failing is because we don't have an object over here with files, and then I need to now close that object over here, and now everything should start to work, right? I can now format my code. And as you can see, we have the files which are the initial files. Otherwise, Formik will have no way to know what are we trying to validate, right? And now, yes, now if we go over here and I just refresh our page and I put something that will fail, and I am sure that something will fail, I can select all of these files, right? And submit them. You will see that we have quite a lot of failures over here. And so those failures, they should now be in our Formik errors. And because we have errors, even if I delete this, just for you to see, I will not be able to submit. So I can click, but we are not submitting. When we delete the files that failed, for example, this file failed, this file failed, this file also failed, this file failed, this file failed, almost everything failed except our cats. So if I now click submit, now, yes, now we have a submission successful, right? And we have everything that we wanted to do in this video, I guess. If you need any other question, because it's already like 1 hour long and I might be forgetting one use case or another use case, so always feel free to go to the comments and ask me. But I think we have everything we proposed at the beginning of the video. So if you like this video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are not already, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye!